When did you start working with Fender?
Roger Balmer, who I had worked with at Yamaha and Music Man, called me in the beginning of 1981 and said, I've been hired along with John McLaren and Bill Schultz to bring Fender back to health. And we've been hired by CBS.
What year was this?
The beginning of, they actually were hired in 1980, but I got the call January of 81, as far as I can remember.
Right.
And so I had an interview with Bill Schultz, John McLaren, and Roger Balmer, and they outlined to me what they wanted to do. And so at that time, they put me to they gave me a task of laying out for the next 5 years how Fender would re-enter into the guitar amp market. Fender had had some disastrous products. The Fender 75 had very moderate success, and it was a copy of a Mesa Boogie Mark II, but with some changes and mods and so on, not a blatant one.
Sure.
But I was so incensed when I came to Fender that they would actually copy somebody else's product.
Sure.
I told them, I said, you guys are Fender.
Right.
You're
People
the
copy
leaders.
you. Right.
People copy you. What
Right.
are you doing copying Boogie? They're so hungry for market share that the marketing guys at that time didn't know any better and said, here, build this.
Hmm.
They had amplifiers. They had 2 bass amplifiers, which I thought were not really great sounding in comparison to Ampeg SVT. They
Not
had
enough power.
Not enough power. They had a train wreck history in solid state amplifiers. Fender had never had successful selling solid state amplifiers. Every series they came up with became the laughing stock of the guitar amp business. The Fender Libra, the Fender Taurus, the TFL 5000. I mean, all these...
Is that what developed the term, the dark era, Fender dark era?
Oh yeah, Fender Dark Era, because
Sure.
they had aerospace engineers, God rest their souls, designing these things without proper marketing input. Nobody in marketing in Fender, previous to my coming, could speak circuits.
Mm.
And so they were at a disadvantage with R&D, and basically R&D was a country club. So Fender R&D put out a few products a year with a very large number of staff, and these products really did not do very well. So Fender amplifier sales had really shrunk, and meanwhile their greatest competition, which was PV, Marshall, and a few others, were eating them alive in the market. So anyway, they hired me at that time to create this 5-year plan, and so that meant actually coming up with features, functions, models, circuits, and when I actually started with them, which was, I believe, May, when I physically was there in their R&D department, even though I was working on this plan for several months, I came into their R&D department, I believe, in May of 1981. And when I came in, I made the presentation of the plan to Roger Cox, who's the head of R&D, as well as the rest of the organization. And that's when it started the process of designing these new amplifiers. So I worked with Ed Johns, who
And
was
the plan included what amps you were going to make, what you're going to cancel,
yes,
and how you're going to grow the company.
yes, including all the numbers and spreadsheets in the works.
Wow.
What are we going to do to get this amplifier company back in business?
What was the goal? What were the sales, and what did you need to bring them up to?
I think it's hard to remember exact facts and
Sure.
figures, but it seems to me when I came on board, they had shrunk to about 17,000 units annually
Of amplifiers.
Of amplifiers, and it was a very small amount of money.
Sure.
So we went from that 17,000 units in 1981 to 125,000 units by 1983, and that included production overseas. We started a company in Japan called Fender Japan, and out of that sprung Fender Electronics Japan. And so amplifiers such as the Sidekick series and the Keyboard series and all these amplifiers that had never had in that price point, as well as the sound quality, because we started off developing a professional line of solid-state guitar amplifiers. The names were Montreux, Stage Lead, Studio Lead, the Showman, which we used for the top-of-the-line solid-state amplifier, and then London Reverb was another one, very good. And so they had a lot of features. They had assignable effects loops, they had graphic equalizers that were assignable, and channel switching, and active EQ.
Were these the first amplifiers that had assignable
Yes,
effects loops?
signable effects loops,
Assignable
assignable graphic
parametric EQ,
equalizer.
sorry,
Yeah.
graphic equalizers?
I had pioneered parametric equalizers on the Yamaha amplifiers, but when I
Wow.
got into including the original prototypes of the Yamaha amplifiers had buffer amps on the front panel with a patch in and out, so you could patch your pedal board into the front end of the amplifier, which was
Oh, which is something you brought to the TBR days, right?
yes, right, exactly,
sure.
right. So that was '77, and then there was a lot of features which we pioneered, which we brought forward and then put
To
into the
Rivera.
Fender into the Fender amplifiers and eventually into Rivera.
And what were some of the tube amplifiers that you designed for Fender?
Super Champ, Champ 2, the Concert, we reissued the Concert, Deluxe Reverb 2, Twin Reverb 2. We did a stage lead tube amplifier, which never got produced. We produced the solid state amplifiers, but not that. I think all in all I did about 72 products total.
And when you say reissue these amplifiers, were they just reissues or were there
No,
changes?
no,
When you say
these
two,
were-
they had other features that the other ones didn't have, like,
Precisely. I shouldn't say reissue.
okay.
We used the name, but they were really brand new designs.
Ah.
And they brought full channel switching to Fender, which had never, well, I shouldn't say never, they had a pseudo channel switcher right before I came on board. I believe it was called the Fender 30.
The Fender 30.
But when I came on board, they're substantial, including the effects loops with level controls and so on.
So were you one of the first guys to do channel switching?
Yes,
Basically
that's
the
right.
innovator of channel switching for guitar
I don't
amplifiers?
know. I don't like to call myself the innovator of channel switching for guitar amplifiers because I'm sure somebody will say, no, that's not true. I thought of it or I did it in whatever year. But if you look at my modifications that I
If you
did
look
for
at the timeline of
amplifiers
other amplifiers.
and the timeline, channel switching Fenders in 1978, channel switching Marshalls in 1978, there were none from those factories.
Right.
I was doing it in terms of mods.
Oh, exciting. What made you think of Rivera doing your own amplifiers? Was it Fender? Did you get...
Well, as I had established Rivera Research and Development in August of 1976 and had consulted for many companies, when I was at Fender and ran into the political problems of Fender, where you spent more time worrying about the internal politics than being able to actually do your job. Also, Fender was being sold off by CBS, a fact that I was warned about before I came on board with Fender. I had a meeting with Tom Beckman, who was the Roland distributor in America, in 1981, before I went full-time with Fender. And Tom said, the only reason they're going to hire you is because they're selling the company. They've already offered it to us. And I didn't believe him. I could not believe that. So I went and told Roger Barmer, and Roger said, oh no, they have no intention of selling. Now whether Roger knew at the time or not, I can't say. But it was actually better for me not to think that they were going to sell, because that would have taken the heart out
Sure.
of and the passion out of what I wanted to do. If it was only a commercial entity, I don't think I would have put so much love into what I was doing. So by the end of 1984, Fender was already on the block. There was a competition to buy it between Bill Schultz and Roger Balmer. Roger Balmer got fired because of it, and I got fired as well. So I left Fender in October of '84 after I had been sent to Japan to design the next 2 or 3 years of amplifiers for Fender. That was actually very clever of Bill Schultz. Send him to Japan for a month and then fire him when he returns. Thank you, Bill. God rest his soul.